Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Daphne and this is Made for More. My people, it's been a minute, but I am back and we are going to continue right where we left. So if you're ready, let's go. In my previous video, we talked about 9 fascinating things about Esther, and we delved into the book of Esther 1 and 2. However, we did not finish the chapter 2. So I'm going to finish chapter 2 today, and then we'll delve into our next topic, which is for such a time as this. Just to give us a little recap of what happened the previous video, just in case if you have forgotten where we stopped. So we stopped at Esther being queen, and the last 9 fascinating thing about Esther was the feast of Esther, where King Ahasuerus honored Esther by declaring a feast called the Feast of Esther. To wrap up chapter 2, one day Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate after everything had happened, and then he overheard 2 of the king's eunuchs, Teresh and Bigthan. These 2 men became so angry that they conspired to assassinate the king. When Mordecai heard of this, he reported it to Esther, and then Esther reported it to the king and gave the credit to Mordecai. So the king had it investigated, and it found out to be true that in fact these men were trying to plot to kill him, and so these men were executed, and Mordecai's name was written in the royal book of the Chronicles. There ends the 2nd book of Esther. Now for the topic of the day, which is for such a time as this. I love this. So the book of Esther chapter 3 opens up by introducing to us the main character, of course, Haman. Haman was one of the king's officials, and King Ahasuerus had promoted Haman to second in command in the palace. And with this promotion came that everyone and every servant in the king's palace must bow down to Haman and pay homage to him. However, Mordecai was like, I ain't bowing, I ain't doing it. He was like, as for me and my household, we will never bow to Baal.
As for me and my household, we will never bow to Baal.
I see where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego learned this from. Their forefathers, his uncle, his great uncle. He learned it from Mordecai. And so the other officials became so fascinated about the fact that he was the only one who wasn't bowing to Haman. And so they brought it to Haman's attention that, hey, Oga, this man that is not bowing, he's in fact a Jew. To make matters worse, so Haman became very furious about 2 facts. 1, that Mordecai refused to bow, and 2, that he was a Jew. Hey, fire! Because Haman was an Agagite and he didn't like the Jews at all. And so Haman started to plot against Mordecai. His plan was to not only bring Mordecai down, but to bring his whole generation, like his whole family lineage, like every Jew. Haman started to plot to bring them down. He casted lots in order to determine the best time to carry out his plan. This man was crafty. He was very smart, and so the date that he chose was about a year from the time that these lots were casted. And he went to the king and said, my king, I greet you, I hail you. And then he told the king that there was a certain race among the people that were refusing to obey the king. He told the king that these people were dangerous and these people were not in the best interest of the king. So it is better for the king to execute them 1 year from the time that he reported them. And then the king was like, this is a good idea. I like it. Let's do that. And so the king gave Haman his signet ring to write a decree. Haman therefore summoned all the scribes in the land and wrote a decree, and the decree was sent out across the land. All right, let's digress for a little bit. Haman was a very, very crafty man. You see, the reason why he had decided to select this date, it is because that he knew that the kingdom was so big enough that not like six months will not be even enough to carry out his plan, because it will at least take the officials to spread the news. It will take them like 4 months, maybe 6-7 months to spread the news across the kingdom, because remember, King Ahasuerus' kingdom spreads across 127 provinces from Ethiopia to India. So it will only make sense for him to leave that gap so that there will be enough time for everybody to hear the news, and then there will be enough room to execute these Jews. Haman proceeded to offer the king 10,000 large sacks of silver to the king's treasury in order to fast track this plan and make sure that it's in fact carried out, that nothing was to be gone wrong. So this money was used to pay like the officials to make sure that it gets spread across the kingdom. And after this, the news spread and the Israelites heard of this, and they became sad. They were mourning, they were crying, they were like, what's going on? 1 minute Esther is going, another minute they want to execute us. What's going on? And so I did a little research to kind of see what 10,000 large sacks of silver is worth in today's money. Are you ready for this? Okay, it is estimated to be worth about $300 to $500 million. That's how much Haman was willing to give in order to bring Mordecai and his whole people down. This kind of hate, eh? When Mordecai heard about the royal decree, he tore his clothes. From up to down. And so he put on a sackcloth and ash. I think it was kind of like a thing in the Jewish culture, like when they are mourning, they kind of like put on a sackcloth. And I know that it is very, very uncomfortable. It's like has like rough edges. If you're not careful, you might even like bruise yourself from it. And so Haman started mourning and crying and lamenting when he learned, not Haman, Mordecai rather, please my people, I beg, bear with me, bear with me. Mordecai started mourning and crying. And so Esther's maidservants and eunuchs spotted Mordecai while he was mourning, and so they went back to Esther and reported. They were like, madam, we saw your uncle, oh, he was mourning, he had put on a sackcloth, he was crying, he was lamenting, and so we didn't know what to do, so here we are telling you. And so Esther sent back the maidservants to ask Mordecai what was going on, and Mordecai had told them what had happened about the decree, and he laid all of the Jews, and in fact Mordecai gave the maidservant copy of the decree so that they could give Esther. I believe part of the money that Haman had given to the king was used to make copies so that every Jew, everybody in the whole region must have copy. In fact, they had excess, and so they went back and told Esther. And part of the message as well that was given to the maidservant to tell Esther was that to go to the king and plead and intercede on behalf of the people. And so after Esther heard of this, she sent back to Mordecai. So it was like a middleman messenger type of thing. They were interacting through a middleman, which was the maid servant. And so Esther sent back to her Mordecai and told Mordecai, was like, uncle, you know that it is a law here that you cannot step before the king without being summoned, because if you do, you're not gonna get killed. And Esther even added that, in fact, the king has not sent for me in 3 months. So how am I going to do this? For such a time as this, how am I going to do this? Do you want to get me killed? And so they started to plan on how Esther will approach the king about this. She asked Mordecai to gather all the people of Shushan, which is the Jews. She asked Mordecai to gather them and tell the people to fast and pray for 3 days and 3 nights without eating or drinking anything. And she told Mordecai that she and her maidservant would do the same. And after the 3rd day of fasting and praying, she would then enter the king's court without being summoned. And she was like, if I perish, I perish. Whatever will happen. Waiting go be, it go be. It could be, I want to see. And so Esther did that, and Mordecai and all the Jews did that. We have come to the end of this video. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but yes, we have come to the end of part 2 for such a time as this. Please stay tuned for part 3, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Toodles.